Hello, this is Mark Smith with Family Tree Counseling Associates. The topic of this video is laser-like aha epiphanies about narcissistic abuse. Aha moments are what we therapists love for our clients to experience and what people in recovery find to be life-changing. And I've come across some epiphanies about this subject of narcissistic abuse I'd like to share. Before I share about some of the epiphanies, I have a sort of a cool story I'd like to share with you. On April 26th, my former fiance wanted to meet with me in a restaurant, and she said she had something to share. She sat down and proceeded to lie for 2 hours about the nature of her infidelities, but then she spilled it. And she began my process of severe, complex PTSD and narcissistic abuse, and just traumatized the hell out of me. This took place at a restaurant called Charleston's, which happens to be my favorite restaurant. It's a chain restaurant. I like it because it's dark and there's leather everywhere and dark booths and good food and red meat and decent prices, good location. I just like the place. And I had not been back to my favorite restaurants since April 26th. And I thought maybe I'd never go back in there because it was a trigger to my trauma. But my buddy Tom and I were meeting to go to a recovery meeting tonight, and he wanted to meet between point A and point B, and Charleston was right smack in the middle of it. And I thought in my spirit, it's time to go back there and to reclaim that spot as my own and to overcome the trauma. So there's probably 50 tables in this joint and probably 200 seats. And I didn't tell Tom where in the restaurant that I sat when Betsy told me, when this person told me the bad news. And I walk into Charleston's this evening, and my buddy Tom is sitting in the exact booth in the bar that my former fiance dropped the bomb. That's a 1 in 200 chance. And I sat exactly in the same seat. That's something. To me, that was God saying, dude, you got this. You are ready to move from survival to thriving. In my new language with my new people in narcissistic abuse recovery, my favorite word is thriving. You're not just surviving, you're thriving. And I took tonight's random happening that wasn't so random as God saying, dude, go rock it. You're okay. You're going to thrive. You can claim back your whole life and including your favorite restaurant, and I'm with you. A 1 in 200 chance of my dude sitting there making it safe. I lost it for the first 10 minutes, just cried my eyes out. He was waving away the waitress, but I pulled it together. We had a great evening. So it might seem silly for me to talk about thriving because in the past 7.5 months, I really haven't done much thriving. I've been surviving. And I guess what I want to say, folks, if you've had your guts ripped out by a con man, a con woman, a narcissist, a sociopath, a histrionic personality disorder person, antisocial, borderline, whatever you want to call them, and nothing gives you joy anymore. And you think about suicide and you don't want to eat and it's hard to work and you can't sleep. You got a pain in your chest and your hands trembled. Anybody else's hands tremble? Mine trembled for about 6.5 months. And you're filled with fear. You're filled with anxiety and you keep thinking about it. What the hell happened? Was it me? Was it them? Was it the other person? You know, what happened? Well, I tell you what, I want to tell you that you can survive this. You can get better. And one of the things that I found to be vastly really important is to figure out what you got. So in a model that I share with my clients, recovery for anything, it starts, number one, it starts with having your walls down. And that's the blessing of being involved with a bad actor. That's the blessing of being involved with somebody who is sociopathic. They will rip your guts out. And I guess what I want to say is hold on tight, just survive. Early on in my recovery from this, one of my clients in a men's group, he said, it's all about just getting out of bed in the morning and just put one foot in front of another. And he's the toughest guy I know. He just puts one foot in front of another. He said, that's a victory. And I said, can I put one foot in front of another and crawl back in bed? Is that a victory? He said, no. So the first thing is having your walls down. And the problem with narcissistic abuse, it will shatter your defense mechanism into billions of little pieces. After 3 weeks of trying to cope, I went off to a treatment center and I didn't leave. I knew if I left, I may not survive it. This is serious stuff. This is painful stuff, folks. You know it is. And I want to tell you, this experience has been, you take all the painful things I've experienced in my life and times it by 100. That's what this was. I'm still standing. I'm going to thrive. Because it's all about the next thing in the step of recovery, and that's having insight. You got to have insight. Somebody's got to turn the lights on. You got to have an epiphany. You got to have an aha moment as to what it is. And I've been dancing around the truth of what happened to me. Let me tell you my journey. Some of you who've watched all my videos and know my journey. You know, if you have a GPS system in your car and it's set for New York City and you're in Indianapolis, you're going to be lost a whole lot. It's going to take you in the wrong direction. You need a correct GPS system. And your paradigm, your therapeutic, philosophical paradigm is the thing that will guide you and get you to the right place. And you know what? There's about 10 million paradigms out there. My brother, who is a intensive religious addict, he'd tell you, he knows the problem I've had. It isn't PTSD, it's sin. I hadn't trusted enough. And God bless him, he doesn't have a clue. He has this phrase, he says, you're lost as a goose. Well, he's lost as a goose. The issue when somebody is a con woman or a con man and they're experts at lying and they develop a false self and they show you that false self for months and years, and then you find out that they're a whole nother person, that ain't your sin. That's, this person is a sociopath. That's the truth about that. That's the right GPS system. So I've attended 12-step meetings, love 12-step work. 12-step work is awesome, but my main problem wasn't being addicted to this person. I had addiction to them. Melanie Tanya Evans, one of the experts in this field, says your brain will become extremely addicted to the narcissistic abuser chemically. So yeah, but that my main condition wasn't I'm a relationship addict. My main condition was I was narcissistically abused. I have spent a lot of time talking about PTSD, and I've come to learn about complex PTSD, which is what you experience after being abandoned, and it's more relational. But you know what? Even complex PTSD doesn't cover somebody who has been narcissistically abused. It's very close. It's almost the same thing, but it's not just experiencing PTSD due to abandonment. Narcissistic abuse is you've been in touch with a sociopath or a psychopath or an antisocial personality or a borderline, and they have cut your heart out with cruelty and ruthlessness. So I'm so grateful for all I learned about PTSD from Bessel van der Kolk and Peter Levine, Michelle Rosenthal. Those were some of my teachers. I've been to a lot of therapists in the past 7.5 months. I've spent so much money on therapy. And I love my therapists, and they've all tried to help me. But this condition flies under the radar. I've been a therapist for 30 years. I hadn't heard of this condition. And this condition pulled together every one of my symptoms. It would have been really nice if I'd have gone to the treatment center and they're like, dude, you have narcissistic abuse from this sociopath you've had in your life. Let's work on that. Here's the symptoms. Here's the book. That's what I want to do for you, is name this disorder. I thought for a while that maybe my former fiance had multiple personality disorder, because I could tell there was somebody else in that body that wasn't my country girl with a golden heart. It was somebody else altogether. It was spooky. It was as if there were multiple personality disorder, but it's far more sinister than that. It wasn't that she was splintered off and there was this other part of her that would come out and do bad things. It was she was choosing to do bad things. She was fully aware of it. She was cognizant, and she ruthlessly and without remorse, selfishly did not care about my safety, and she lied, cheated, stole, used, and behaved abhorrently. That's different than multiple personality disorder. I listened to the teachings of Byron Katie. I love Byron Katie. She's brilliant. But it didn't help me figure out what my main deal was. I would bring up issues like, I think I'm dealing with a narcissist, and I was told by people on my own staff, no, she really doesn't fit the criteria for narcissism. Well, the criteria for narcissism on DSM-5 only covers overt narcissist, your Donald Trump, over-the-top, arrogant narcissist, which didn't cover my former fiance. But you know what? There's something called covert narcissism, where they're shy-looking, but they're sneaky as hell. And they are a narcissist. And so I've been lost as a goose. I've been doing everything I could do to figure out this situation. And I'm a therapist who's written books on affair recovery and written books on abandonment, and I couldn't figure it out. And I've been working at it full time, spending all my time, energy, and mind on the subject of figuring out what happened. So somebody who hasn't read any books and hasn't had any training, good luck trying to figure this out. And what I said in my last video is you can learn more watching YouTube videos and get more recovery value out of watching YouTube videos than you can seeing 90% of the therapists out there and paying top dollar for their expertise. That's my opinion. I've got more help by listening to this book that's changed my life, Psychopath Free by Jackson McKenzie, and then watching YouTube videos about this community of people who have suffered from narcissistic abuse than I did from very expensive treatment centers. I read the book People of the Lie. Close, not quite there. I loved Susan Anderson's book on abandonment. Didn't really cover a lot of the symptoms and the dastardliness of a sociopath. I listened to Susan's forward book on obsessive love, and I was seeing myself as the person who was obsessive, and seeing my former fiance as more the victim and I'm the bad guy. That was totally wrong. I was never the bad guy. I was somebody who was mind fucked by a world-class con woman, and I was searching for paradigms, and that was one of them that was close but no cigar. It helped me to back off some of my addictive thinking, but it didn't explain the truth about who I was and what was going on. There's a book called The Wizard of Oz, An Other Narcissist. And I read that book, and frankly, she was discussing primarily overt narcissists, and I was reading that, it sounded more like me than it did sound like her, because she was more of a hidden or a covert narcissist. So that didn't really help me. A book that helped me tremendously was a book by Raquel Lerner, The Object of My Obsession is My Reflection. And she talked extensively about covert narcissists. The truth will set you free. And don't let a therapist blame you. Don't let a therapist tell you that somebody who's narcissistic as Donald Trump doesn't fit the DSM criteria. You know, if they lie and steal and misrepresent, and if there's another person under there and they don't have any remorse, you're dealing with a sociopath. And it's a whole nother thing than just your average sex addict or your average person who had an affair. I initially was going by the paradigm of a book called Surviving an Affair. It's a great book. I recommend it. Didn't fit. It's about your typical marital affair, not dealing with a sociopath. One of the things that helped me immensely was internal family systems. And internal family systems describes the therapy and the treatment that Melanie Tanya Evans really shares about sort of healing that wounded little kid on the inside. Very similar, very similar. But internal family systems was close, no cigar. I was such a mess when I came back to my office in the end of July. I ended up eventually scheduling a therapy appointment, a consultation with just about every one of the therapists that work for me. And they all love me, and I love them. And they shared what they had, but none of them could really even come close to helping me, because they didn't understand narcissistic abuse. I was even sharing in my staff meeting this week, and there are a lot of really excellent therapists in there, but there's one therapist and one assistant who have been through some narcissistic abuse, and they knew exactly what I was talking about. And the rest of them looked at me a little funny. Like, okay, this goofball is off on another tangent of the boogeyman of the week. That ain't it. It ain't no boogeyman of the week. This is true. There are people out there who do not have a soul. They do not have a conscience. My mother was one of them, and that's why I picked this very damaged, pretty damn evil acting woman to recreate the issues that I had in my childhood. So you got to have an understanding of exactly what you went through. And if these symptoms that I'm talking about sound like you, if there's somebody with a double life, they said, hey, I was in the military. You find out they were never in the military. You find out they have a wife in Utah. They have a double life. They steal money. They misrepresent. They say, I went to school at Purdue, and they didn't. These are sociopathic people. The third step in the therapeutic process, from my understanding, the first one is you got to have your walls down. So you got to thank whoever knocked them down. The second is really have an insight into the truth. Aha, epiphanies. The third thing is what I call deep processing, and that's that wounded little kid just crying and crying and crying and crying and finally getting angry. I spent a lot of time on a massage table just weeping. I've been weeping every day for months, and I trickle every now and again. My eyes get a leak just a little bit, but I don't weep anymore. You can survive. You can thrive. You just got to understand what you got, and your therapist isn't going to direct you right. Your friends aren't. Your family isn't. Jackson McKenzie, in the book Sociopath Free, he'll guide you in the right direction. And you Google the term narcissistic abuse and just keep watching videos. It'll blow your mind. So this condition, narcissistic abuse, it's not depression, although you'll be depressed. It's not that you have borderline personality disorder. What you have is more complicated PTSD caused by a sociopath. That's what you got. And it's filled with physiological symptoms. You'll be hyper sensitive to sound. You'll pace the room. You'll be hyperkinetic. You'll have panic attacks. You won't be able to sleep. There will be some suicidal ideation. You'll probably lose your appetite. You'll have a lot of anxiety. You'll have flashbacks constantly. You'll wrestle in your mind. If this is what you have by somebody who lied, cheated, stole, misrepresented, my friend, you have suffered narcissistic abuse. Find out more about it. Listen to or read this book, Psychopath Free by Jackson McKenzie. Watch videos by Melanie Tanya Evans. And I will have more information for you to come. But I'm excited. I mean, this is a complicated diagnosis that almost everybody misses. And it's not victim mentality. It's what happened. You got to know what you're dealing with. I was working with a new client today and trying to differentiate, is this somebody who just had an affair? Is this somebody who has an addiction? Or is this somebody who is a sociopath? There's a different treatment process for every one of them. In the Bible it says, do not strongly rebuke a mocker lest they hate you. I was working with a couple the other day, and I knew the guy was a narcissist, and he didn't get anything of what I told him. All I did was piss him off because he wasn't capable. Narcissists are there to blame other people. They don't have the capacity for insight, and they're never going to change. I will talk more about this. I hope that you had some aha, laser-like epiphanies about this condition that'll change your life. I want to invite you to go to our website, familytreecounseling.com. I got a real good book on abandonment, a real good book on shame. Also, sign up and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Family Tree Counseling on YouTube. I am available to work with you via Skype if you'd like. You can call me or text me 317-507-8866. Thank you for watching, and God bless.